if you allow me a small introduction. Now, as our lectures of urban history and urban development have ended, I have organized extension lectures by a good friend and colleague of mine, Adria Carbonelli. Adria has been educated in this harsh Barcelona School of Architecture, where architects were seriously educated till the European reforms came in. And I've been working with Adria for several years in Umeå School of Architecture. I know him as a perfect scholar, and his PhD is about urban matters. And what is the delight in this recording is that he's from Barcelona. Barcelona, which is one of the most interesting newly modern cities in Europe and worth knowing in detail. Therefore, I'm extremely glad that within this lecture series, we have the opportunity to listen to Adria. And he will be sharing his screen with us. And I think we can start. I still hope some of you have my phone, so it is on alert if we fall off from the internet sky. Please let us know. And with that comment, the word to you, Adria. Please, welcome.
Thanks very much, Yuri, and welcome everyone. Thanks for being here with us. Right, so as Yuri said, I'm going to be talking about Barcelona, but I will use Barcelona as a case study to actually bring forward a series of theories or a series of ideas that have historically changed the course of urban planning, or we could even say have inaugurated a new period in urban planning, or what's so-called modern urban planning, and later on, urban design and some other disciplines related to that. But there is a crucial turning point in the mid-19th century where urban planning is really established as a discipline, as a field of knowledge, as a field of study. And according to Sarja, one of the figures we will be looking at closely today, a science, so a science of urban planning, or of urbanism, as he calls it. So it will not be only about the history of Barcelona and its development, but it will be also mixed or contextualized in a broader in a broader sense by bringing in ideas, references, concepts, theories, and other authors that have been producing both writings or formulating ideas and elaborating plans, which in a way have, all of them build up what we have, build up the foundations of modern urban planning. You could even expand it to contemporary urban planning, because we are still feed from that sources, or we're still drinking from that sources, we could say. As Yuri also said, I am from Barcelona, and I studied there, but I'm living in I'm based in Stockholm now since several years. 6 years, I think, 6-7 years already. So this will be another example I will be referring to more particularly in the second part, so in the second session next Friday. Because following Barcelona of a paradigm of the 19th century urbanism, or the early modernist urbanism, I think Stockholm, besides being a city I know well, I think it's a perfect example to talk about the modernist, not the modern urbanism, but the modernistic urbanism, that is the functionalist or the modern movement urbanism that made a leap or brought some kind of new principles into the urban planning already in the 20th century. So we will be navigating between these two cities and then bringing in also other examples. So, so modern planning, the birth of the urban. And the birth of the urban is a key, is a crucial term, is a crucial concept to understand the unfolding or the development of modern urbanism. Especially what we will be trying to disentangle or to understand is the emergent split or difference or gap between two notions or two categories or two concepts to refer to the built environment. One traditional classical idea of city, which has been, dates back till antiquity, and as I understand, you've been also looking in the lectures by Yuri. And then this emerging new concept of urbanization. That is a concept, is an idea, but is also a type of space, which is opposed, can be defined in opposition to a city, or is definitely defined by a series of elements different, other than those that define the city. So this is a bit of an overarching question that will be underlaying the whole talk or the whole series of lectures. The transition or the shift from the city as a major category of urban planning or to city planning to urbanization or the urban condition. And basically, essentially, if we try to look at these two notions or to confront what is a city, or to understand, define what is a city versus urbanization, a clear way I find to show it is the transition or the shift from this type of settlement of structure that you see in the picture. This is an old, arguably the first registered map of the city of Stockholm. But you can use many other reference, probably, in any city, in wherever you are sitting right now. So most of the cities globally, worldwide, have been, to a certain extent, going a similar process of transformation. So moving from a situation where the city is defined clearly in opposition to what's outside it. So the city is a structure, is a type of space, is an organization, entitling or embodying a certain types of social relations, of economics, and so on and so forth, of political structure, and that is clearly separated, demarcated from the non-city, let's say, from the countryside, to put it easily, right? So the dichotomy or the binary city countryside, what we call today urban and rural spaces, or what's in the city, intramuros, and what's outside the city, the suburbs, right, the outer city, is clearly differentiated in all aspects. And the map of this country is clearly acknowledged that, right? We can clearly identify the pattern, the structure, the systems, but also, most importantly, the limits, the boundaries that separate what's city and what's not city, right? As opposed of nature, the clear separation also between culture and nature, a human-made environment, a social environment, a cultural environment, and the outer space, which is which follows, set of natural laws or rules of nature, which are outside the human action, or outside the control of the human action. At some point, all of these I've been mentioning so far gets into, if not into crisis, it gets shaken or challenged in a process that is very much linked to modernization, industrialization, and the rise of modern capitalism. And we could link this with what's known as the explosion, a process of explosion of the city. And this you could actually combine it or apply it to, you can read it in spatial terms, the explosion of the city as a phenomena that started in the 19th century and really exploded in the 20th century until today. But you also can link it to economic development, the explosion of the industrial economy, the becoming of cities as centers of economic development, of technical development, technological advancement, a whole set of new technologies that really allowed not only the explosion, the blast, the growth of economy, and therefore industrial civilization, if you would call it like that, but also that had implications in space, right? In the way the city, through its these new means, technological means of circulation, of production, of reproduction, really impacted or reconfigured the spatial organization of it. And just to put it also in a summary into images, what I'm trying to capture here is the moving from this type of settlement to this type of settlement, or this type of fabric, because it's different. It's difficult to call it a settlement, as opposed in the sense that it's not a clear pattern. There's no clear structure. It's more of a process of continuous expansion of a series of elements that get intertwined. So the moment where the city as a object, we could call it, right, as an object that can be identified and analyzed and traced in confinement, to a process of full expansion of a system which is boundless, that has no limits, that merges the natural and the artificial, that merges infrastructural systems that really expand into larger territories with a very complex relations of functions, and becomes more of an enmesh fabric, of a patchwork, of a collage, right? Where it's very difficult to then trace these differentiations and to identify what's not, or what's city and what's countryside, or what's urban and what's rural, because everyone, all of this space, it's interdependent to each other, right? So this transition, which sets the difference between these two concepts I mentioned earlier, the move from the city to the urban condition, the modern, you'd even argue to contemporary urban condition, is what is going to be underlaying the whole talk, or what we will try to understand its origins and how we came to inhabit this kind of mess, urbanized mess we are in today. So, together with this city urbanization duality, I would like to start also with a bit of a provocation by an architect and urbanist and scholar, urban theorist, extremely influential in Barcelona, chair of the founder of the Laboratory of Urbanism of Barcelona in the 60s, and the leading figure of urban planning in Barcelona until he passed away a few years ago, Marcelo Morales. And I made it as a provocation because in one of his last lectures, he came about with this quote, which I will read in a second. So it's this kind of statement that somehow simplifies a very complex a very complex idea into a great synthesis, but that you only dare to articulate or to pronounce it when you master this field of knowledge at the end of your career, right? So he basically quite provocatively said in a lecture in 2010, which was, in fact, was a lecture given in the context of a conference on sarja, when during the celebration of the 150th anniversary of Ildefonso Cerdà, that we will also be looking at today. And in the inaugural lecture, Sommerade said that to build a city, there are basically only two necessary things. So it's not that complex, really. You only need a support infrastructure and an idea of urbanity. With these two elements, it's enough to actually build a city, and is what has been evolving, or through these lenses we could analyze almost all of the modern planning history. Basically a mental image and a physical support. This urbanism. Of course, this might sound a bit of a kind of superficial, banal claim, but at the end, I've been thinking about this code a lot, and the more I think of it, the more I believe it really contains a whole truth in it. And of course, it doesn't mean that all of the cities are the same, or that the support is the same. Precisely what he's trying to argue is that what we need to find when we engage in any historical moment or context, in any geographical context, is the definition of both these realms, the realm of imagination, the realm of spatial imagination, the construction of an image which will go further beyond. An image is both aesthetic, it is also conceptual, and how this image is basically translated into the physical reality, right? So this kind of otherwise classic duality between virtual and real, or projection of thought and into action or into building. And then the physical support that is required and possible in every historical geographical context to actually realize that idea, right? All right, so going a bit back and again contextualizing, what is modernity? When we talk about modern planning, modern urban planning, modern urbanism, we're obviously referring to planning, but we're also referring to modernity. And what is modernity? Because that's tricky. Sometimes we assume or we interpret this term in a pretty immediate way, but it's not that obvious perhaps. And it's actually a term that has been used in many different ways. So it's important to basically define what we mean by modernity. This is the movie Metropolis that perhaps you know, or you've seen it, by Fritz Lang, of the turn of the century. And I believe it really conveys very much this contradiction that modernity implies, right? On the one hand, especially if we think of the modern city, we could immediately bring to mind the idea of the metropolis, the idea of technology, the idea of the future, the idea of new modes of and new means of transport, this kind of almost futuristic vision where everything is possible, where technology opens up new possibilities for life, a place of emancipation, or if we link it to more recent references, New York, like the city that never sleeps, city of lights, all these kind of positive sense or trends that come with modernity or with modern urbanism or with the modern city. On the other hand, it shows clearly the elements that put that city machine to work, right? So it shows the other reverse of progress and of modern technologies and advancement, which is the force required, the energy of the labor force, basically human force, that is basically underground, moving the engines of this machine, right? So it both shows the kind of a futuristic development of urbanity, but on the other hand, it shows how it can become also a space of oppression, or a space of alienation, or a space which is largely based on uneven conditions, on unequal, so on inequality, right? So, and I think this is at the core, the very core of the idea of modernity, this contradiction, continuous contradiction, or clash or conflict between notions of development and progress and notions of community, equality, and so on. Coming back to modern urban planning, probably if we think of a modern metropolis, besides the first European metropolis like Paris, London, Berlin, probably the most known or the arguably the great metropolis of the 19th century is New York, right? Which in a way also brings many of the features associated with modernity and modern development, being rationalization, technology, and this kind of sense, positive sense that Fritz Lang was portraying in his movie, this kind of futuristic idea of urbanity that also, in a way, creates a new subject, creates a new person, creates a new inhabitant of the city, which is liberated from the obligations of the countryside and is entering a new world, which implies also a new way of living, a new lifestyle, and a new possibility of individual development. Speculations of the city of New York, which actually became quite certain in the sense that they anticipated pretty much what the city ended up being, or the form that the city ended up taking, was largely based, as I earlier anticipated, in technologies, right? New technologies of construction vertically. So the steel structure, very importantly, the elevator, the invention of the lift, right? So technology that allows to move vertically, mechanically, as opposed to moving horizontally. And also this superimposition of different spaces for circulation. The movement, the speed, the velocity becomes a crucial element in defining this modern metropolis. A modern metropolis that, as Corbett portrayed in this project or this picture of the city of the future was growing vertically, as I said, as an overlap, as a superimposition of layers of systems that differentiated functions and speeds of movement, and also modes of transport, right? From railways underground to trams and different kinds of trolleybus or buses or cars, and then to a more kind of commercial spaces, pedestrians, and so on and so forth. And as I was saying, also this kind of superimposition or stacking vertically allows a certain type of, a different type of relation, of social relation, a different type of living. This picture or drawing you see on the right allows the separation, so in a way to keep the autonomy or independence of your rural plot, but also being stacked, so optimizing the land and increasing the value of the land by stacking these kind of individual plots vertically, right? So, and this is the potential that the elevator provides. And then a series of also new techniques, not only applied technologies, but also techniques or instruments for planning and for design and for regulating how is this development shape, or how to monitor, how to control the urban form in this vertical growth or vertical expansion of the city, as opposed to the classic horizontal expansion of the city, right? Especially in these fantastic, very suggestive, almost phantasmagoric drawings by Hugh Ferris, also in the early 20th century, drawings of the zoning laws that are sketching or testing the sun impact into the, so how much mass volume can be built in an urban block without, or still allowing some kind of sun impact into the street, into the public space, and so on, which would be later on translated into the zoning laws, regulation of the city. But also at the level of architecture, there's a new type of building put together or emerging in that moment. So the moment the city stretches vertically, also the functions that classically have been laid out horizontally, one next to the other, along a street, let's say, are being stacked vertically. So we now have the emergence of the skyscraper, also being possible by this set of technologies mentioned earlier, but also that functionally, in terms of program, it brings these new combinations or these new relations. So suddenly in the building, so it's not that along a street you have a shop and then you have a working office space, and then you have a house, and then you have a school, and all of the functions can be also assembled or arranged vertically in one same plot, in one same building. One of the most interesting or paradigmatic examples of this is the Downtown Athletic Club, built also in Manhattan, 1931, where you see this accumulation of functions stacked vertically, a building that is a commercial building, so mixed use, we could call it today, right? So it's a building that is a commercial, it's a working space, but it's also a residential tower. It contains a hotel on the top floors, but there is also recreational facilities, like there is a swimming pool, there is sports and leisure facilities, and so on and so forth. So it's like a compressed piece of a city in just one building, arranged through a vertical movement. And this is what Remco has called the culture of congestion in his analysis of Manhattan in New York, right? An urban culture which is very much based on congestion, on accumulation, on density, on hyperdensity. And this at the same time, as I said before, also brings or creates, shapes a new type of subject, modern subject, a new type of urban dweller.